Hello and welcome to What's My Purpose and How Do I Find It? My name is Tres Jimenez, and I am really looking forward to taking you through this workshop today. It's meant to be self-paced so that you can work at your own pace, your own timing, whatever feels most comfortable and what fits into your life. What you'll find is that there's going to be opportunities to download materials here and there as you move along. And please go ahead and use comments as you move through this workshop today and experience the enjoyment of finding your purpose using the Japanese Ikigai as the model. And so let's go ahead and jump right in. As I said, my name is Tres Jimenez, and I'm going to be introducing you and taking all of us through this journey using the Japanese Ikigai. So a bit of an overview about what this is all about. First of all, why does it matter? This matters because of what I hear from so many of my friends, from my clients, from my colleagues, that in times of transition, it's important for many of us to be thinking about what's most important. What's my purpose? What's my calling? What's the reason for being? And so I hear enough of this that, and it's also a question I've been asking myself, that I felt that this is on top of mind for so many of us. So I wanted to try to build something that can utilize some of the techniques that have helped me to find my purpose. Why am I here? Well, this is my purpose. So for those of you that know me, for those of you that don't, I worked in corporate retail for several decades before realizing that what I wanted to do was to help other people find their purpose in life, and that I really wanted to develop people, work in leadership, focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and coach people on making positive transitions in their own lives. And so I'm so passionate about it, very driven. But you know what? 10 years ago, I felt this kind of a little bit of a feeling of being lost, and I really didn't know what to do with my career, with my life. I felt like I had such creative potential, but I wasn't using it in my work. And the Ikigai was one of the tools that I discovered that helped me to think very deeply beyond my work, beyond my vocation, about what was really important for me from that point in time in my life. So it really has had a huge impact. I save my Ikigai, I look at it regularly and update it. And so it's something that's really an expression of my deepest me, my deepest me, if you will. What's this going to be like? So in this self-paced journey, in the Teachable platform, what you're going to be able to do are to watch these short videos. You'll also be able to download materials, work at your own pace. I'd also suggest perhaps that you get a beautiful new clean journal that you might want to write in, because some of the things I'm going to be asking you about are ways for you to process some of what will lead you to what might be part of your Ikigai. So it's really going to be a lot of opportunity to dig deep, to think deeply. There's no finish line. This is not something that you're going to win. You're going to go through this in a way that feels really deeply authentic and meaningful about where you are in your life right at this moment. I also want to share the history of the Ikigai because it's a Japanese model. I want to honor the culture, talk a little bit about the history, and also how sometimes the Ikigai is used and even referred to differently in Japanese culture than in the Western culture of the United States. So where do we start? What I want to invite you to do, first of all, is to go ahead and download your Ikigai template. And I am giving you two options because I figure some of you might be creative types like me. So there's a black and white version that you can print out and download that you can add your own color. So if you know that, like me, you've got tons of markers on your desk and you're always using color, you might prefer the black and white. The colorful version, if you just want to get into the words and the writing and you want it to look beautiful as it is. So go ahead, I'm going to give you a moment to pause and download those materials, and then we'll get going.
Where are these materials? Sorry.
Yeah, right? Okay. What I'm going to do for you is put them into chat. So
Perfect.
here's the black and white one. just so you can see both of them. You might want to choose. And then the colorful one, which has backgrounds where it was kind of fun because you'll see in the materials a lot, you all, that I have such a love of watercolors that, a lot of what I did is I took backgrounds of some of my own watercolor paintings and then blew them up to use them as backgrounds and images. And so it's something that it's not at all like what I would do for my corporate work. And so, just adding a little bit more of my own creativity, my own colorfulness, and a little bit of my artistry into the designs. So it was fun to work on it. Has everyone been able to download and take a look? So this is going to be your template where we're going to be building this as we go along. So I'll talk you through it. For now, just gaze upon it and get to know it and meet your blank slate, if you will. And so let me share with you a little bit more about the Ikigai so that we can get grounded in the cultural relevance and also I think adopt a little bit of the Japanese perspective as we work on this, because I think it's really different. So the Ikigai, as combination of words, literally means ikiru means to live, and gai means worth or value. And so it's generally thought of as a reason for living. And the Ikigai, it's what gives us a sense of value in living. And so there's a lot of fantastic history in that this Ikigai was the word, the expression appeared as far back as the 14th century. And it also started showing up in literature in 1912 in the novel Kojin. But it really started to explode into this way of using it in a framework or in the late 90s when it was included in an Age and Aging article about Ikigai that focused on the Japanese culture, in particular on the locations in Japan that have high numbers of population that are 100 years or older, living joyously, being healthy. And so there was a lot of study to try to understand what was it that enabled these people to live such a long time. So what, was there some secret, this fountain of youth? And what they found was that there was this focus on Ikigai, this sense of that it's not just about a one singular identity or one purpose. It's actually a combination of things that give us that value in life. And sometimes when those things come together, it's when we feel that sense of almost being spiritually evolved. I want to read a couple things to you because I really don't I love how they're worded. The desire for what the Japanese called Ikigai is a universal human experience. And Ikigai, which is the highest level of desire, may be considered to be essentially the process of cultivating one's inner potential or that which makes one's life significant. And so I don't know, I love that. I think it's so much bigger than something that might be a job description or the way that when people say, so tell me about yourself, it goes deeper than that. And so the Japanese dictionaries define Ikigai as something to live for, the joy and goal of living, a life worth living, and the happiness and benefit of being alive. So the happiness and benefit of just being alive. And so I think it's really an interesting thing that too, that when they started studying these elders in Okinawa, what they found was that they talk about their work. So it might be that they had a job that they did where they earned money, but then when they go into retirement, they just find different work. So I even like that too, because I think sometimes in Western culture, we think we do work, we save up, and then we retire so that we don't have to work anymore. But what I think is interesting is this love of Ikigai, this love of work, and thinking about ways to occupy our time, our energy, our emotions around what's most meaningful. So I don't know, I love that too, because I think it seems that there's an opportunity for us to revisit this right now from wherever you are in your life, but then to keep visiting it to wherever you are, whatever age, and reflect back on what's the kind of work, if you will, like how do I spend my time, energy, and my emotions so that I have that sense of value in living. For some, even in retirement, it starts to be, taking care of other people in our families or volunteer work or becoming part of a nonprofit. That's also another form of work. So in that way, I think to invite you all to think in the way that the Japanese culture thinks about Ikigai in that broader sense. And so not just about what kind of job should I be doing, but what do I love doing? What am I good at? What does the world need out there? And maybe what can I do that I can get paid for? So it's really looking through 4 different, very unique lenses to identify a collection of things that are your Ikigai, rather than it being one thing. So that's a bit of where we're going. I also want to talk about some myths, because I think this is where, when the Ikigai got adopted by the Western culture, it starts to be used and maybe thought about in a Western perspective. So while I do think that it is about finding joy, it's about finding purpose, it's not necessarily about finding your next job title. Job might be one aspect of your Ikigai. But you know what? 30% of young Japanese people, like in the last year, in 2010, sorry, there was 2,000 people that were surveyed in Japan about whether the job that they did was their Ikigai and whether that really felt like their purpose. And only 30% of them said yes. So it also doesn't need to be your job. And I want to, it's because sometimes we have other motivations about doing the work that we do. It's not about money. There is a part of the Ikigai that has you reflecting on, what can I get paid for? What can I gain value for? That's an important part of it, because that value for service, value for product is the energy exchange of our world. That is the way that we show appreciation. That's the way we transfer for services and products. And so money is part of the formula, but it's not the end game. It's not just about career. So Nadia, yes, did you have a question?
No, I'm just going amen, sister.
I'm going to pause for a minute. I know you all, we're recording, but I can edit out these things, because I also want to welcome Karen. Karen, thanks for jumping in to join us, and wanted to just pause so you could say hello to the group. I'm so glad that you're able to be here.
Hi, thank you. Nice to see you.
Thanks, Karen. Karen is another one of our fabulous running buddies, and so glad that you're here, Karen. I hope you didn't miss too much, but just was like actually starting to go through a little bit about the history of the Ikigai in the Japanese culture. Okay. And to recap, one of the main takeaways is that it's, I think, not just about one single purpose, but it's about all of these things in 4 different lenses that help us really get clear about what our own Ikigai is. So we'll be exploring that together. So just dispelling a few myths about the Ikigai, because I think it's also been used and adapted into Western culture, sometimes used as like a finding the perfect job, much like some of the activities in What Color's Your Parachute, a really famous book that is given to people after graduation to find a job. It's not about money, although we are going to reflect on different ways that you can get paid for things. I think that's one piece of it. But thinking about it more as an energy exchange, as a value exchange, is not necessarily about career. And just to repeat, because I thought that was kind of amazing, that of 2,000 young people surveyed in Japan in 2010 that were asked whether their work is their Ikigai, or if their work is their purpose, only 30% of the people said yes. So it's, even though this Ikigai is an important concept in Japan about reason for being, it's more than just your job that you get paid for. And so really just thinking beyond that, it's not static. The Ikigai is really based on where you are in your life right now. And so that's part of what I also really enjoy about it, is that, and you're going to hear me say that numerous times, where are you right now, right in this moment? Because we change. We change depending on what's going on in our lives. When we have young children, or when we don't have children, or when we are married, or maybe when we're single, or we have a new job, or we've been in a job for a while, or we're retired. So many things factor into how we look at our life. So it's great to be able to visit this regularly to check in, because things change. It's not singular. As I keep saying, you're gonna revisit, you're gonna visit 4 different areas, 4 different lenses of Ikigai, to see where there's sometimes maybe overlaps that make that even stronger, but it's not one single thing that you're going for. And so I like that because then there gives lots of options, lots of variety. And it's not a forever. It's not a tattoo. It's something that is fluid. It's something that will continue to shift and change. And it's also something that might shift and change if you were to, for example, sit with a partner and do an Ikigai together. There would be some give and take. There would be different perspectives. And so there also are ways that we're impacted by others that we spend time with in order to live our lives and do our work. And so just know that my intention and my understanding is that this is a very fluid process that can continue to shape and change as we live our lives. I'm going to pause and see. I thought there was a couple of other things that I wanted to read directly from my research. I think this is an interesting point, but that we're going to be looking at 4 different areas that could give us some insight about Ikigai. But when we've done this more in the Western perspective, we want a quick fix, like what is it? And so what I want to invite you to do is to also take a slower process to develop this. You might get started today, but I want it to also be like a rough draft, that it's something you're going to continue to look at. Yeah, okay, I like this one too. So a writer who studied at the Chinese university named Gordon Matthews wrote a book called What Makes Life Worth Living. And he talked about how Japanese and Americans make sense of their worlds through the Ikigai. And what he talked about was that people understanding the Ikigai can be mapped into 2 different Japanese ideas. One is this sense of oneness that we feel by getting clear about our values. The other one is feeling that sense of commitment to a group or a role within the group. And so I think that's an interesting thing to think about too. For today, I want you to really think just about yourselves in this, like really get clear about who you are, what's really important, what life experience you're looking for. But it might be that as you choose to share this with others, that there might be some other discoveries that happen, or there might be some insights about how your Ikigai meshes with others in your life, and how that all comes together into shared common goals, shared Ikigai, if you will. So that's a nice thing to also think about, how this will help you connect into your connected communities. So uncovering your purpose. And so let's dive into the Ikigai. The first of the 4 lenses of the Ikigai is, what do you love? And so we'll dig into this. It's really valuable to reflect on what it is that you love, not what others love, not who other people want you to love, but what is it you love? What do you love to do? What do you love? What are you passionate about? We're going to really explore that and connect that to values, to meaning, and to what's really important in our life. So we'll talk about that. The next lens of the Ikigai is, what are you good at? What are you talented or skilled at? And so we'll talk about that and have you think about that, both how you identify the things that you're good at, the things that you enjoy doing, but also what are the things that people come to you for? What are you known for? What is an expertise that people seek you out for? I'm also going to ask you to take a look at, what are you good at that maybe you don't want to do? What do people come to you for that you'd rather say no about? It's good to also check in on your boundaries when it comes to what you're good at. So we'll do a little bit of that check-in too, because part of the Ikigai is actually saying yes and no to things in your life so that you can stay in alignment with your Ikigai as often as you can. The third lens is, what can you get paid for? And this is simply part of what we need to do in order to survive in life. So part of the exploration here is going to be thinking about different ways that we do earn money in life. And so just thinking openly about that. I'm also going to invite you to think about your own cultural upbringing when it comes to money. These can be very insightful reflections to think about what your own personal attitude about wealth or building wealth or deserving wealth might be. So we'll explore that together as well. And then for the 4th Ikigai lens, it's what does the world need? And this is when we actually look into the big picture about what's going on in the world. What grabs at your heart when you read about things in the newspaper? For Gina, we know that she cares a lot about animals, like what are those things that the world needs our help with? Because sometimes that can be part of our work, whether it's paid work or volunteer work we actually give money to or time or energy to. So it's really important to also turn the lens out. And I think this is the part of the group and the role that comes from the Japanese culture, that it's, part of this harmony and balance. And so even as we think about all four of these lenses, we're going to break down each one with some activities and exercises together. I want you to also think about how this shapes the whole, how this starts to inform your Ikigai, what's most important and meaningful for you. So let's take a look. Let's break each one of them down. So as we look at the overlaps, this is also worth considering. So we'll do this once you start journaling, where you see what you love crossing over with what you're good at. Oftentimes, this really is a sign of a true passion. So when you can actually get those two aligned, it feels really good, where I would say that definitely there's been some unlocks for me in my career where I'm able to use more creativity in what I'm doing. And I used to think it was only something that I was allowed to do as a hobby. So that's really been a huge discovery, just to start to make those connections. And then if you cross over what you're good at with what you can get paid for, at the simplest overlap, that tends to be our job that we do, tends to be our vocation. And if we are good at something and we can get paid for it, that's great. It normally means some security. We feel a sense of being a subject matter expert. We might have advancement in our careers. Although lately I've been reading, I'm going to throw in something I read about the Japanese culture, that instead of in the United States culture, we're hearing an expression called quiet quitting. In Japan, I just read an article that said that by and large, the younger adults in the workforce are slowing down their rate of doing work. They're doing just kind of the bare minimum. And in part, it's because mobility has been limited in Japan. The economy's been a little slower, and there are not a lot of raises or bonuses or promotions because there aren't a lot of levels in the companies. And so what's happened is that people have just slowed down a little bit. And I think it's interesting because the article didn't necessarily talk about this as though it was a bad thing or a good thing, which I thought was interesting. But I think it's very interesting to notice this as a cultural experience in Japan with reasons behind it. But then in the US, we choose to call it quiet quitting and we blame the people. But I think it's probably very similar in that people are learning to pay more attention to what they love, what they're good at, what they can get paid for. And I think it's actually a good thing to slow things down. I think it's something we can learn from the Japanese culture. So I'm just going to put that out there because that's hot news. And it does reflect on what we're talking about here. In what ways could you slow down to pay more attention to this, to be more true to yourself, to be more in your Ikigai? So the other next crossover is what you can get paid for and what does the world need. And where those directly cross over is normally where we do our giving, like either giving in our time, giving of money, giving of postcards or phone calls, whatever that is, that we're tapped in. Like those are things we want to do. It might be that in Gina's case, like they might even all wrap in together, So I think it's when you find that you've got a passion, a job, and something that the world needs that all comes together, and you also love it, that's amazing. But what I first want to do is even figure out what those things are. So before we worry too much about the overlap, let's just even be clear about what this is. And then when we cross over love with need, we tend to get a mission, and like I love this. I love animals. I love creativity. I love, helping out underserved women in our culture, whatever that might be, that sometimes that might be like a mission where it's like, what, I only volunteer for things that actually feed my heart as well. So really starting to get clear about what some of these things are. Where we get crossovers is where we start to feel more of that flow, more of that purpose, more of that Ikigai. And so that's what we're going to do. Let's go ahead and start breaking this down, giving you the opportunity to start working on this for yourself. So what do you love? For me, I love creativity. I love painting. That was definitely one of the things on my Ikigai and was something that, as I mentioned earlier, I didn't always get a lot of support in being creative because it was, it's a hobby, it's not a work thing, it's not appropriate, whatever it is. But for you, I want to have you as the first reflection activity. And I'm probably going to give you all 5 minutes. I'm going to put some music on for the people that are doing the self-paced exercise. This would be where there would be another module. And so we're going to jump right in. And so I'm going to share a couple of questions for you. And I want you to either grab a piece of paper or a journal or write on the back of the Ikigai, if you were able to print that out somewhere, to capture, first of all, a couple of words about what really matters to you right now. Right now, like what is most important? I'm just going to read them a little slowly, but then pause and give you some time. What are your core values? I'm going to give you a handout that can help you explore that. What brings you joy? Thank you, Marie Kondo. I think bringing that expression into all of our lives, it's part of what many of us are paying more attention to. Like, where do you lose track of time and really enjoy yourself? And so what I'd like you to do to support your reflection is to download the template that has a list of life elements on one side for you to take a look at the different areas of your life and how you think things are going. And then the flip side has a big, long list of values that come from Brene Brown. And so I borrowed them so that you could take a look at them. There's some, I would maybe take a look at some top choices to start to identify what your values might be right now in your life. I don't mean like what your family taught you or what other people expect of you, but what is really true for you right now. And for those of you in my workshop here, I'm going to go ahead and put that into the chat so that you can take a look at it. It is an editable PDF, so I think you can actually just print it out and type in it. I'm not totally sure. So any questions or comments so far, you all? This is not going to be in the recording, but I just want to check in with you since it's going to be a lot of me talking.
Did you put it in the chat? Sorry.
Yep. Oh, sorry. I think I only sent it to Gautam. Sorry. Let me send it to everybody. Okay, great.
Love Brene Brown, by the way.
I know, she's great. I didn't like her at first. It's like I had to actually, yeah, I think because she was so, I don't know, fluffy and emotional. Like I just felt like I was this, hard corporate person. And here she was talking about shame and empathy and things that I just couldn't really get behind. And the more I listened to her, the more I realized I want to be like her.
Tress, may I ask a question?
Yes.
So under the life elements, that table, the creativity, money, do we put like a number or do we put how we're doing or what we do tomorrow?
Thanks for asking. In fact, you're helping me to think. I'll put some more instructions on this for this activity. Well, yeah, what we would normally love to do, and this would take a lot longer than the few minutes I'm going to give you, but it would be rating your life elements, maybe even giving them some sort of a rating system, high, mid, low, good, not great, or a numerical rating with a little bit of context on the life elements. And you don't have to do this for everything. It might be that there's a few that are really alive for you, either, wow, I really need to do work here, or I'm really, really pleased with this and I want to acknowledge it. So that's the idea there. And then for the values exercise, it's oftentimes, I think the Brene instructions, which I'm going to put back on the form, are to highlight 10 that jump out at you right away, because there's such value in being able to narrow down. And then if you start with 10, then you reflect and see if there are 3 in there that really stand out amongst the 10, and maybe even one of the 3 that has been true for you forever, since you can ever remember, so that you can really get a sense of maybe some values that have always been important for you your whole life, and maybe some newer ones that are emerging for you. And so the idea is that you would spend time focusing on the life elements and the values, and then from that, then capture some of your notes on your Ikigai in the yellow section, because it should help you really get clear about what it is that you love. So that's the
Thank
idea.
you.
How about a little music?
Mm.
I have one called Brain Food. That's kind of an ambient, supposedly helps you think.
Yeah.
Can you all hear the music?
Yeah.
Thanks.
I just have a question.
Yeah, Karen.
So as I'm writing down some of these values, I'm noticing there's values that I know matter to me right now, but then there's things that I wish mattered to me. Or maybe I think they should matter to me. Like, so it's interesting because I see something and like, wait a minute, does that? Or do you know what I'm talking about? Like you can kind of separate them into kind of different groups, and I'm trying to really stick to what feels right now. But I can see like commentary about the different things on the list.
I love that. Karen, I'm almost thinking like if you find something where you have that yearning, maybe cross-reference that to part of your life element. You know, if there is some place that value might fit in something that you're yearning for or seeking.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks for asking. That was a good question. And all your questions are giving me good ideas about how to add things in, knowing that people are going to be on their own doing this. I'll also mention that what I plan to do with this self-paced e-learning is to host monthly free sessions that people can come to that have attended the workshop. So I will also invite you all once I get started with that, because it might be a fun way just to also chat with people that have had the chance to do the self-paced, and I don't know, so that's going to be made available once I launch this, and I'll keep you in touch with that.
I would say as much kind of help you can get for ranking the life, because I was like, ooh, this is number one. Wait, no, this is number one. Wait, no, these are both number three. Like I was just I couldn't really
get some setup, right?
You know, like I'm not sure who Jenny or who said, you know, I almost have to group them. So I have like 3 number 4s and 2 number 2s and 2 number like, you know, because I'm a Gemini. And then I was like, wait, I'm way past 10. I have 14. So is it important to even sort of rank them in some way, or just identify what they are, and regardless of what, you know, percentage of importance they have in the mix?
Yeah.
You know?
Good ideas. Yeah, I think in general, just more maybe some prompting questions to help people think through making those choices. Gautam, thank you for raising your hand, but please go ahead.
No, thank you. And I think I'm feeling similarly with everyone in the group, with Karen and Jeannie. Thank you for being so vocal. I would love some insights on how to whittle this down because my life elements were way too many, as were my
Yeah.
values, you know.
Yeah, that's
So,
good feedback. And because maybe it's a little too much. Do you feel that in this moment, one of these relates a little better to getting clear about what it is you love? Do you think that it would be more maybe your values help you make that connection, or looking at your life elements?
well, so, I mean, maybe I can just give you my 15-second spiel. What's important to me is financial stability, making sure I'm connected, mind, body, and spirit, right? Growing and evolving. That I am able to serve, and that I am, and serve meaning friends, family, and community. So that's how I look at my life. Now I know that integrates a ton of those life elements. So that's, my little tripod. So I don't know if that could help if we just single
Yeah.
it out. Um, that's where I was. And then the values similar to Karen, I was like, okay, this is where I am now, but I would love like self-discipline, better
Mhm.
financial management. I'd love to be more courageous and confident in terms of getting my brand, my voice, my service out there, working through those insecurities and doubts. So that's basically my values where I'm like, okay, I know I'm creative, I know I'm compassionate, I know I'm giving and there, but there are things that I really aspire to that I'm currently struggling and feel, that I need some help and input. So that's how I'm seeing
Great.
it. I don't know if that helps.
Maybe you can organize it in a way like, here's what are the elements you feel strongly you got figured out, and what are the ones you feel like you
That's a good way.
you aspire to. Sorry, I'm like butting in. I was just thinking as far as stress, like putting a guide, like, well, here's what I'm really,
Yeah.
I don't know who was it, Nancy, or who said, here these are the ones I have, and these are the ones I wish I had.
Yeah, Karen.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so
Yep.
some maybe it'll help people kind of narrow things down, while they're
Yeah,
journaling.
almost kind of walking them through that. I love that, you all. That's such great ideas about, I think the aspirational part, that's part of it, right?
Ooh,
This, yeah.
sorry, I just thought of this. How about current self and future self?
Current self and future self.
That's cool.
Because we're always becoming a new version of ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's the continuum and the change.
Yeah.
So I think,
Thanks so much. That's such really good suggestions and ideas. Anybody
the
else want to
reason,
share anything or share an idea? Then the idea is that once you do the values and the elements, that you might be able to answer some of these questions and add some things into your, maybe even a bit of, if your current self is part of what you want to continue to maintain, then that's great. And then it might be that you also add aspirational self into this.
Trust. I am a little confused. So I wanted to chime in with that in case people get
Yep.
lost. So
Yeah.
you're talking about getting a piece of paper or a journal or something to write on. You also talked about downloading the file with the 2 checklists. And so I started doing the journal, and then I jumped back to the spreadsheet or to the 2 downloads.
Yep.
And then I jumped straight to the values because I was trying to answer the questions that are in the yellow box. But then we started talking about the life elements. And so
A lot of pieces. Yeah.
there's a lot of pieces there. And so but I also may just be distracted right now. So I'm not sure, walking through maybe one thing at a time, or talking
Yes.
about how they're related to each other.
Good feedback there, Karen. And also, I realize I think you came in, so
I came late.
You're missing even one other piece of paper. So on top of all your piece of paper, there's an Ikigai. I made 2 different ones. I made a black and white one in case you wanted to add color, or there's one that's colorful, so that That's what I'm talking about, like adding things into the yellow and the black. So
Mhm.
this is something you don't even have. Let me put them in. I'm going to put them in the chat. But I am taking your feedback about if you all are feeling confused here, where I'm here to explain it. Imagine if somebody was trying to do this on their own. So I like that idea. Like, and because of the way Teachable works, there's different tiles as you go through. So I think I like what you're doing, and I'm going to have each one be a different tile leading to, now you're at the point where you would want to reflect on your Ikigai and capture some of the things that came to you as you reflected on your life elements and as you looked at your values, to really get clear about what matters to you, what brings you joy, what your core values are, and capturing some of those. So that's what this is leading to.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. You're being really awesome test audience for me and figuring out how to make this better.
I think another question is, like you just put these questions out there and how do you do the worksheet? So if we had those question prompts, and it's like obviously these emotions are coming up. Like I'm having mixed emotions. Like I'm feeling excited, but I'm also experiencing shame and guilt at the same time for areas that I feel that I'm not good at. So I just wanted to share that so that people can embrace in the manner of Brene Brown that full spectrum of emotions and feel okay. Because I feel sometimes we may go into this exercise thinking that we have to all be superhuman. So
thank you so much for that, and I love that. So I think bringing that in as a way to just acknowledge emotions as we think through these things.
Yeah, I would have to second that with Gautam, because there's like some big questions there. I mean, the good thing about this, it's a self-paced course, right? We're doing it like as if it were live time, like, oh God, I got to write all this stuff and I'm getting hung up on this one question alone. Like, what really matters to you right now? And like,
It's a big one.
it's a big one. And then anyways, it's a good that it's self-paced, because each one of those you could go off onto all these different tangents. And it does bring up a lot of emotions, and you have to sit quietly with it, unless you've got it all figured out. Which
can you hear me?
Yep.
I think what I feel like when I read the question, what matters to you right now, there is a little bit of like, oh my gosh, it's my chance now to figure it out now. Like, what is the right thing I need to say now for myself, kind of with like the past self and the future self with, okay, so what is it right now? And then you are kind of thinking, like, for instance, someone had mentioned, financial stability. And I was like, why didn't I think of that? Yeah, I want that one too. But I felt shame about thinking that. And I'm like, well, wait, why did I feel shame about thinking that? That's important. So then, and then one of them is peace. And then one of them, so it's like, I got stuck. And then I'm hearing everyone talk. And so that's also making me feel a little bit better with this practice and what we're doing here, if that makes sense.
Thanks, everyone. And I think this reminding myself that this is a slow process, that the idea is that it is slow. So it's really just designed to be a starting point to getting you thinking. Yeah. And I think it's hard because we're doing it and it's like, you're going to come out of here with a complete Ikigai. No, probably not. It's just going to kind of crack it open for you. And it might take a while to continue to process it.
I think the more you can emphasize that in the course of the process, because like, for example, two people just mentioned shame around financial insecurity. I feel the same thing. I know we've had conversations about this before. For whatever reason that is, the reality of shame as a consciousness state is it has very little energy to it. It's like barely at 20 amps, right? So if you're at a shame, you're probably barely moving at the moment to even get to a place where you're inspired with something else. So you're going to have to take some time to journal yourself out of that state, to raise yourself to the next level. Maybe that might be a pride or whatever, but emphasizing constantly to give yourself time and compassion around the things you're feeling, because that's when you're going to come up really the most inspired, way of being, like if you can get past that, and the only way to get past it, is to somehow process it, which journaling is, we don't have the time for that right now, but it's
But I think that's a beautiful thing to include. I love that. And to be truthful, that's not in my nature, right? To invite people to process difficult emotions. So I think just intentionally teeing it up, that even as you go through this, you might experience some difficult emotions as you do take stock of your life, and you might experience feelings of shame, and to allow yourself to authentically feel that, but then see if that can enable you to write something down, to process it, and perhaps to think of what's needed there. It can be a catalyst for change as well.
right. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
And I don't know if this will help, but I really do want to work on this exercise, and I'm happy to, like a dummy name or something, maybe put like a little profile of me and how the questions I asked myself and how they helped me whittle down things. This is something for you to think about.
Yeah, that I would love any kind of input or suggestions. Thank you. Thank you. So you all do you feel that you could capture even a couple of things on your Ikigai, and even about what's important for you, what you love? It could even just be, to keep it light as a starting point. Just at least to feel like you're creating a bit of a draft, a first draft, a rough draft. Thanks, Karen. Love that animated thumb. So I'll give you a couple of more minutes just to think about things that you do love.
Just to clarify, when we talk about what we love, it should be the kinds of things that are on that list, or it could be like, I love
anything,
reading, I love dogs, I love, like, are we talking about like those sorts of tangible things, or are we talking about concepts?
Both. I think let it be open, because that's actually real. That's authentic. It's the things that you love, that bring you joy. And it could be activities, it could be things, it could be, could even be people.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thanks for asking. All of these things are making it better for my instructions. What was that expression? People, place, or things? By the way, if you haven't figured it out, you can also type into these Ikigai documents. You don't have to print them out. I made them so that if you are able to open them in Adobe Reader, you can just type right in there. So that I forgot to mention that. So I will make sure to mention that at the beginning. Although I think there is something nice about handwriting. There's something about that mind-body connection when you're journaling.
I don't know if this will help. You know what I did? I literally, said, okay, I'm just going to come up with my values unprompted. And I took a breath and I said, in this moment in time, what's important? And because you said to clap it at 10. And then I came up with my own. And then I'm like, oh, okay, it's part of the list of mine. My verbiage is a little different. I can add it to the list. So I didn't let that kind of put me in this loop. It made me now feel a lot better when I just separated from it, did my 10, and then went to the list. Then I felt a little bit more complete. I hope I'm making sense.
That's interesting. So by even like disciplining yourself to stay in the now, it actually was helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, okay, fine, I know what this exercise means, but instead of looking at the list to pick and choose where my ego may want to catch this and, try and be aspire into some spiritual yogi or something, I said, let me just breathe, take a moment, I grounded, I took a breath from like my heart and stomach, and I just said, okay, now what's important to me? Can I just do that? And I came up with my 10. And I then said, okay, what are the elements that are important to me to work on between, now and the next 18 months, that kind of thing. And then I just put three elements for now.
Thank you. Anyone else ready? Or you're not required to share anything, but if I'm certainly appreciative of the feedback about how to make this more clear. I'd like to maybe give a couple more minutes and then we'll move to the next section, which is what are you good at? Does anyone need more time on this? All right. Great. Thanks, everyone. So let's move to the next lens, if you will, of what you're good at. And in this case, there isn't a separate activity, but what I do want you to do is to think a little bit about things you're good at. You see that there's a creativity theme in here. And this is a picture of me doing a project for Burning Man, which also has been a really big part of my life for, gosh, almost 20 years. And so it's something that I also love to do, but that I'm also good at and I get to do as part of my work with Burning Man art. And so in this space, what we want to do is have you think about some of your noteworthy talents, some of the things that you're good at, that you know that you're skilled at. But also to think about what are some of those skills that people seek you out for? Like maybe those are some of your towering strengths, things that you're good at, especially when you like people seeking you out for that. That's definitely like there's something in here that I also want you to think about that discernment, because it might be that you're good at something that you don't particularly like to do. You might still need to do it, but I think that when we think about Ikigai, it's also seeing how much of your time and energy can go towards the things that you actually want to do, the skills that you want to use. What kind of activities almost come naturally to you, where you feel in flow, you almost get that sense of losing track of time, and it's almost easy for you. And what I want to have you do is just to maybe make a list and feel that you could, what I want you to actually add into the Ikigai are the skills that you feel the most proud of, the skills that you enjoy using the most, and the things that you love people to ask you to teach them or show them or help them with. Those are what I hope to have in here. You could actually, like on the side, you might list some things that you're good at that you don't particularly like doing. I think it's really still good to acknowledge that, and maybe think about whether that's something that you need to keep doing in your life because it's part of your job or your family dynamic or your friends count on you for that. But are there ways that might be, maybe you don't need to do as much of that. So it's also like a good way just to kind of really review your talents, your skills, and especially the ones that you enjoy using the most? Questions for you all? I think this one, hopefully, I think this one might feel a little less emotional than really thinking about the love part, but it still might be that there's skills that you're using that you don't necessarily love using. So I think this can be a good reflection just to check in on that. Gautam.
Yes, thank you. And actually what came up is I came up with things that give me joy and that I'm good at, that I'm underutilizing or not doing as much or good as I should. So that's something also that is good.
Yeah, that's great. So finding that discovery. Sometimes too, that there's when we think of these talents, when you can ask somebody, what is something you think everybody should know how to do? And what will tend to happen is that person will respond with something that is a towering strength of theirs, like, because it's so easy for them to be good at it. So I thought that's kind of fun too, like another way that you could sometimes even help other people discover by thinking about those things.
Can I add, you just sparked something in me when you said that, because I feel like I just said that everyone needs to know how to ride a bike and swim. Right? I feel like everyone needs to know how to ride a bike and swim and read a book and write. Just it. Then I'm like, but I'm good at that too. So maybe there is, I don't know.
Those are easy for you.
Those are easy for me, but it's not easy for everyone.
Yeah.
To ride a bike and swim.
Absolutely true. As much as I love books, it's really, reading is hard for me.
And reading this can be hard.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, that's so true.
My computer just shut off.
You're still there.
Oh, that's really weird. I'm back.
Trust, I'm finding it interesting that the number of things that I think I'm good at that I don't actually enjoy doing. I feel like that outweighs the things that
that's interesting.
Yeah, that I'm good at and I actually like doing. Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm really glad you pointed out, like suggested or made a point to call out there are things that we do that we're good at that we don't necessarily want. Like I'm really glad you said that. That was really important.
Thank you. Thanks for that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. There's things that I'm really good at, but I'm kind of burned out right now. So I'm like, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. And like things you're good at, Jeannie, that you're not doing, like making hats or wearing outrageous costumes. Like sometimes it makes you think about things like,
there's an imbalance right now going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, watching the shame trigger that sometimes also, maybe that is true, but that's also a part of where your life is right now. It doesn't mean you can't still acknowledge and appreciate the things that you're good at, even if they're not filling your time or your energy right now. It might be that by putting them down there, that it might find its way back. Gautam.
Sorry, another one. Actually, just thought of this. An idea for your next one of your soul gardens. Time to kind of come together and do something that you're good at that you don't have time to do.
Yeah. Yes, that's true. That's great. And, I think also the thing I teed up this earlier about my own background, that I've always known that I'm good at drawing, I'm good at art, and yet it wasn't something that I felt I had permission to do. I got enough negative messages in school and in the workplace that those weren't really things that were to be taken seriously. So it might also be that you're going to revisit some messages about the things that you might be good at that you haven't been using or celebrating in yourself. I remember when I first started doing sketch notes at work, to take notes in meetings, which really is a great tool for my brain. I would have like, initially I would have people look at it and almost have like, isn't that cute kind of looks. Like I would get kind of weird, judgy comments. And so it felt like kind of embarrassed by it. But then what started to happen as I did it more is that then people would start to say, can I make a copy of that? And so I started to then get some confidence built in really being able to use my creativity in the way that I took notes and shared and synthesized information. So it was a big turning point for me.
I had to step away for just a sec, so I don't know if somebody had said this already, but if you're stuck, asking people who know you what they think you're good at. And if you're doing this in a self-paced kind of thing, then you could, take a break, and over the next, I don't know, day or so, you could ask what other people think you're good at. That might be a tip.
That's great, Karen. Thank you. I'm writing that down. I mean, I like the idea of having long pauses in this program. So I think that just to continue to encourage things that people can do to go and talk or think or process will be really a good way to stretch this out a bit. Other thoughts or anything else to cover about this, what you're good at? I love the suggestions, think that what are people good at that they don't have any time to do? I love that addition, and take some time to ask people what they come to you for, what they think you're good at, and just listen. Sometimes I think, what was that was called, like sitting in the love seat with somebody, like sitting and just listening to somebody sharing what they feel you're good at can also feel good, can be a nice thing to do to boost your confidence. Anybody need a little more time or ready to move on and approach another circle? All right, let's go. So the next category is, what can you get paid for? And in this exercise, again, it's going to be like one of those confusing ones. So I'll try to set it up better, you all. Oh, I think we lost Gautam. Hopefully he will join us again. I know he was like on a bus or something. In the section of what you can get paid for, what I want you to do is to also think about more of a brainstorm. It might be that you are currently doing work that you get paid for. It might be some other kinds of side jobs or side gigs, or maybe some things that you've done in the past. So I want you to think a little creatively, even if, I have a full-time job, that's pretty much what I get paid for. But I want to just even brainstorm and expand a little bit, because I'll tell you that I got really creative this summer about finding different ways to make money, earn money, sell things. And it's actually been kind of fun. Like, it started out being a financial concern summer that I was kind of feeling sorry for myself. But then once we started to get into action, it actually felt kind of good. And we ended up selling some things that have been sitting around that we've been meaning to sell. And it's just, I don't know, it's felt like actually just putting one foot in front of the other as ways to think about money and wealth and savings and making money very differently. And so in this exercise, what I put a picture of me doing a drawing in a workshop, that now I actually get paid to make flip charts and big wall charts for people. So it really has become something that isn't just tolerated in the workplace, isn't just people making photocopies, but actually getting paid to do it. So that's really been a big shift for me in my work. And I don't know that I could have gotten there without that really slow process of healing as an artist. And so the prompts here for you to think about, but again, I'm going to have you do another activity. So learning from the feedback I got from you already, we'll look at these questions and hold them, and I'll walk you through the exercise as though it would have already happened in a previous slide. When it comes to money, I also want to invite you to think about what your life experience is with money and wealth. So many of our thoughts and our values connected with money come from how we were raised. If you were raised with a lot of wealth, it's very different than if you were raised very poor, where you had to worry about the basic needs in life. If you had parents that were very frugal, that believed in savings, or if you had parents that experienced a lot of, getting into debt and having financial troubles, even as kids, we hear these things. And so, it might be that in your culture or your country, that it might have had a different kind of political system that had a different thought or approach about wealth. And so it's important to think back in that way. For me, I had a father that was a refugee immigrant, and made his own wealth by graduating from college, being an engineer, and worked really super hard at doing a lot of things he did not like doing so that he could pay for his daughter's college education. And so that was something that really imprinted on me, plus a little bit of his baby boomer, get the job, get the watch, stay there forever, be loyal, don't get another job until, don't quit your job until you have another one. All of these really well-intentioned messages are part of what impacted my thoughts about wealth, and what gave me serious fear about starting my own business, because I was so used to having a regular salary with benefits and healthcare, and I just didn't think it was possible. So it was like almost breaking some of those old messages, and literally the verbal messages that I still continue to hear from my family. Ooh, are you sure you want to do that? That sounds risky. Like those are important when they come from important people. So you might have to really revisit some of those messages to think about, in what way are those still messages that are coming into your inner thoughts? What are some of the messages you might want to leave behind? And to think a little bit about more, what life experience are you seeking? Sometimes it also can be helpful to think about, what is it that you want? What does enough look like? Do you want to go on more vacations, or do you want to buy expensive things, or are you pretty happy with where you are? I think it's also a good way to calibrate what kinds of things you might be wanting in your life first, before you even put a price ticket on it. So that's part of the wealth equation too, that we work so that we can buy things, do things, have things, and live the way that we want to live. So I think what I'm inviting you to do also is to think a little bit more about enough. And this is a concept that's really been alive for me, of rethinking what enough really is in a world where we are running out of resources. We're recognizing now that our planet is not an endless supply of everything for us. And so I'm really even thinking about, what does enough look like for my life? What is enough for me to live the way I want to live? And if I'm lucky enough to make more than enough, what do I want to do with that money? And really starting to think about what options are out there, and just being more creative, starting to do other side projects that really feed my passion, that maybe don't make a ton of money, but all of these things start to add up. So it's really a way to kind of explore and go beyond maybe one singular source, even if really that ends up being the way that you do get paid. So it's just part of what I want you to think about and explore and have some fun with. And the tool that I want to invite you to use in order to do that is a mind mapping exercise. And once again, there is a downloadable mind map instruction to guide you through the process. And so if you've never done one before, would love to have you open this up. I'm also just wanting to teach you how to mind map, because it's a really cool way of exploring options that isn't about making a list. It's a way of doing things that is a little more nonlinear. It helps you find connections sometimes. And so in this mind map example, I'm going to give you a moment and make sure that you've got it open.
I don't have it.
In the chat?
Never mind. I found it. Sorry.
Great. Thanks. So in looking at this is really kind of more of my version. So it gives you an idea that I just put like money in the middle, like ways I could get paid. And then I started thinking about categories. And for you, it might be, different vocations or different kinds of work. It might be, drawing down from a investment account. I don't know. There might be different ways of earning money. But for me, I thought let me at least think, okay, I could do full-time work, I could do part-time work, I can freelance, I can sell things. So sometimes what you want to do is just start to get some categories off of the main topic. So it's an interesting way of getting your brain to brainstorm in this free-flowing way. And then once you have your main categories, then you can start to branch off of those, almost like a spider web. And so then you can start to add options. So when I started to brainstorm and think about, okay, well, I could do, oh, I also added events because I'm starting to want to do events. That's so full-time, these are different things that I'm qualified to do now. I could also, I mean, I did work as a buyer, but I don't want to do that anymore. I don't even want to put that on the list, even though I guess that's something I could make money doing. But I really feel that if I had to have a full-time job, I would go towards HR, talent management, maybe project management, something like that, I think. And as a full-time job, freelance, this is what I'm doing, coaching, training. I'd like to do more strategic planning. So I wrote that there. Selling things, these are some things that we are currently doing just to clean house. And also it's been nice to make a little bit of money. In doing events, I've started to do events that focus on supporting people in career changes, creative and intuitive, like the Soul Garden Club. And then maybe thinking about doing some things outdoors, because I love to be outdoors and I love to kayak and run and hike and camp and backpack. And I wonder whether there'd be a way to do something where it combines some of the work that I do, but doing it in the out of doors. So that, that I think is something for me, then starting to really like branch off. And, you could then even start to branch off even a little bit more of each of these. So it's a way of like a non-linear way of brainstorming. And then what you can do is start to make connections. For me, I started to see that, oh yeah, you know what? I'm also coaching people on careers. There's alignment there. Outdoors could be part of where I do the training. That sounded exciting to me. So you can start to then make linkages that might give you some additional ideas or inspiration about possibilities or ways that you could make money. It might even be that, you have your job now, but maybe you're only going to probably do that for another 4 or 5 years. So maybe you could also brainstorm about then what, like, there's something you might want to do part-time, semi-transitioning into retirement, or who knows. So there's lots of different ways to think about this, but starting with money or how you can get paid as the center starting point. Questions about this mind mapping exercise? All right. Why don't you take a few minutes and see what you're able to come up with. Probably on a blank piece of paper or the back of one of your Ikigais, and yeah, see what kind of connections you might be able to make as you brainstorm what you could get paid for. Oh, one other thing I wanted to say, I think back to the emotions. I think you all are helping me to think about this. Is that, that sometimes also when we think about money, there's worry, that several of you talked about wanting financial stability, even as we talked about this. And that, so I want to make sure and acknowledge that, that there often is worry. We do tend to have worry and concern that can show up almost like lack mentality of, oh, I don't have enough. And so there also is a lot of benefit in reflecting and thinking about the different ways that you can get paid, the ways that you can make money, just to remind yourself that there are lots of options out there in the world for you. So just to be more expansive and generative, even as a way of perhaps calming our worries and fears about money.
Tress.
Yeah.
I wonder if at each of these sections, because I'm just thinking about the worry, guilt, like the emotions that come up. I wonder if for each, like when you start a new section, either at the beginning or the end or both, like doing a check-in with yourself. Okay, this might be triggering, or before you start, acknowledge that this might be triggering, and then at the end, check in.
How
Okay,
are you feeling?
is this
Yeah.
triggering? Yeah, exactly. And if we just that's a good practice in general. Anytime we're going inward, right?
Yeah.
So that might be a good thing to foster.
Thank you so much. It's, I think, also a beautiful way, since this is going to be self-paced, of like, hey, welcome back. Let's have a quick, like make sure that there's that, almost like making each of the transitions a little nicer too, that people might even have weeks before they might pick it up again.
Yeah, acknowledging that.
Yep.
There may be a break just because of scheduling, but there may be a break because you needed it.
Yeah.
And that's self-care. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yep.
Would it be helpful? So looking at in the blue box, you have the 4 points of what is your life experience with money, wealth, what life experience are you seeking? And then there's the brainstorm part where you had the mind mapping.
Yep.
Is a thought to do the mind mapping first to help you answer these questions?
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. That,
Okay.
in fact, I wrote that. Does that feel like that would be a good way to process it, you all?
Because I like the mind mapping, but I'm
Yeah.
working on it, that I'm like, oh wait, I need to do these questions too. So
It's almost like the questions should help you maybe just even get grounded and think about what some of your own perspectives on money and wealth are. The mind map is designed to help you brainstorm and think about options. And then you might return to the Ikigai then to write down a few things about how I could make money. So it's almost so, but I don't know, like, are the questions a good starting point? Because I think they're deeper philosophical questions. And then what options can you think of? Hey, let's use a mind map to explore options. So it might make sense to do it that way.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gina. That's good. Thanks for talking it out.
Sure.
I think starting with the questions, for me, starting with the questions and kind of journaling a little bit without a lot of structure. Enough, with the questions. And then taking that and seeing what fits into the mind map, that would flow best for me.
Great.
That's not the only experience, obviously, but
it's a good natural transition too, because the final reflection question here is, what options can you think of for earning money? And then it'll say, in the next section, we're going to be using a mind map to explore options. So I think it makes it for a really nice transition.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Thank you. Anybody need more time on this? All right, let's keep going. And so in this section of what does the world need right now, now I'm thinking like, this is actually like, it's a double set of questions, right? So there's questions here just to help you get grounded in what is going on in the world right now. So what are some of the news stories that grab your heart? Is it about immigration? Is it about voting? Is it about racial justice or children, animals, women? I mean, it's really like, this is actually, it's a good way to kind of tap into what really, what gets your attention, what grabs at your heart. What would make the world better? I think also sometimes we have these big lofty ideas and dreams and passions about what things, what do we think could make the world a better place? Just as a way of maybe tapping into what is motivating for you, what you're interested in. Sorry, I accidentally muted. What or new and who needs help in the world? This also is a way of tapping into what what you're paying attention to, what you're noticing, what do you care the most about? Oops. All right. And so then on some of these the other prompt then is to reflect on what's happening in the world, to think about where you can have the greatest impact. What do you want to see improved in the world? Where is there an opportunity for you to make a positive impact and perhaps even connect into your values from the values exercise that you did? What are maybe some new challenges in the world? This could also be perhaps even about technology or some new things. Maybe it's integrity with how we use AI, or some of these brand new things that are happening to us that are intriguing for you, that you're kind of curious about. This is a way then to start to perhaps capture a few things in the orange section of your Ikigai that are what you most notice and care about in the world right now, that might actually be part of what you're willing to give your time, your energy, your money, maybe even your work to make the world a better place. This is about impact. Does that feel like enough for you all just to be thinking about? I mean, probably, many of the people that are going to be doing this might already have a philanthropy strategy or a volunteer job that they do. Or want to do. I think maybe anticipating people thinking, oh gosh, I should be doing more, but I'm not. I want to also be sensitive to that. So it might even I think I'll be a little less inclined to say, what are you already doing? I don't want people to feel ashamed for not doing something that helps make the world a better place. So that I would welcome some feedback too about that, if that resonated or if that didn't come through.
One of the things that came up for me when you started talking about it is the idea of making the world a better place. I mean, I visualize a giant globe and it feels very overwhelming. And so trying to, world could be,
your world
could be the street that you live on. It could be, the people that you work with. It could be, world, and community might also be another word that could be used.
Oh, I like using community.
Yeah. And hopefully ripple effect, right? That we do touch the bigger universe. But I think calling out that it doesn't have to be this great big thing that's going to save everybody.
Yeah.
But that little things are important too.
Thanks. That's a great calibration.
Yeah.
Just to feel that even, the small things do add up. And I like the mention of the ripple effect. I'll add that in because I think that's very true, and there is a lot of power in the collective right now, certainly that I'm seeing all around the world, of people joining together, being more empowered and helping to drive change.
Time frame is another thing. Are you, it could be in the short term, it could be, long term. One of my things is I'm trying to raise kind, conscious children to, for the next generation. That's a way that I contribute. And so but that's really a long game.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But then there's other things, smaller things that I can do, to help somebody that I, see across the street today. Like there's lots of different ways that you can frame it.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Almost thinking about your legacy too. I think sometimes that's part of it. And that is also very in keeping with the Japanese culture too, this concept of like the individual as part of a community, creating perpetuity, creating the legacy. So it's a beautiful way of actually intentionally thinking about the future. Thank you for that.
Can we talk about the definition of legacy?
Yes.
Because to me, it's like a totally egotistical concept. Like I only see it as of like, I'm going to build some giant house and have a statue. Like, what is the point of legacy? Like,
when I mean legacy,
why do you care what you did once you did?
I think what I mean is impact. And so I think that it's probably, what remains after you've gone, like in what way have you left a positive imprint in the
Impact.
environments that you're
Yeah.
in. So thank you. I think that
I actually like the word impact better because I
Yeah.
have that same feeling. I've been with people that are like, I'm at that age where I have to leave my legacy, which I've never really felt
Yes.
that, because I'm like, well, what you want to, write
Yeah.
books and, climb Mount Everest and put a plaque up there that you did it,
Yeah.
I think impact is like,
Yeah.
I think legacy is an old word that we should just stop using.
Yeah.
Like retarded.
Thank you. Thank you. I love that. I love your
Kind of.
honesty.
It does seem like it is a word that is the same thing. Like for me, it's like, well, you're going to leave an endowment for your heirs and they're going to, continue. I mean,
Yeah.
if it's good, yeah, but I mean, it could be like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Sacklers contributing to all these
Oh
museums.
no,
Meanwhile,
I do not want this to be a
I mean, it's just that kind of thing. It just says the wrong. Yeah.
Yes. Thanks, everyone.
Mhm.
Great input.
Tress.
Yeah.
I need to step out for a bit, and then I'll be back about 3:15. But yeah, the legacy word, that I feel like that I agree
agree?
with, because it's like it has like a heavy connotation of then like passing to the next generation, and then that's like a heavy thing. Then you're kind of living in the shadows too, like
Yeah.
and so
And I
yeah.
think it takes
Great.
you out of. I think it takes you out of the present moment.
Yeah, it takes
Yeah.
you exactly.
Good point. Good
That's a
point.
good point. So
Yeah.
I will be returning shortly.
We'll see you back. Thanks.
See you back. Okay. Bye all.
Other thoughts? Gautam, we haven't heard from you. You've been so vocal that I'm missing you.
Yeah,
Mhm.
no, I agreed with the conversation. I really liked impact.
Yeah.
I think with me, I've been struggling with the mind map around money. I love what you did, but it's so funny. This big block just came up, like literally, I mean, it's been there for a few weeks for me around money. Not that I grew up with any negative beliefs and all of that. And I think I'm very generous and kind spirited in terms of sharing stuff, even if I've not had money. But in terms of earning it, I was just, every time I was trying to write something, there was so much doubt that crept in. So I just took it away as something that I have to open up and be with and see where that leads me. But I agree with the impact bit and the creativity around that.
Thank you. Thanks. And thanks for sharing your experience too with the mind map and money. I mean, I feel similarly. I think that part of even creating this map to show you all as a demo is hard, because it's not an easy place to be when it's a little more challenging financially. So I can say that.
Funny because I was looking and I was like, well, I could get a job. And I'm like, ew, no, I want a job.
I did the same thing, but I did think, like, what if
it's a possibility. So you
right?
have to
Because I just thought, like, what
I'm
would I
like,
even do?
yeah,
it was a good
corporate
exercise.
job.
It's not what I want, but I think it was a good exercise to force myself to say, what, like, if I really needed to do this, what would I aim for? So it was,
Mm.
I found it healthy, even though it was hard.
Mhm.
It was just helping me to be realistic about my life.
Mhm.
Well, everyone, what I wanted to do was to offer you a break. I don't know if are you cool to keep going? I'll tell you what I have left. I've got now looking at integration. So now it's going back to look at where those areas cross over. So starting to find where there might be integration across the four categories. And then the final integration is a reflection where you start to look for patterns. Where are you starting to see some connection points even across the 4 lenses of the Ikigai, and then trying to think of ways that could how that relates to different areas of your life. So there's just more of like real starting to now put it back together and integrate. So probably about maybe another hour at the most, if you're willing. And of course, totally up to you. But everyone good with taking a short break and returning in 10 minutes?
I'd love one.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, super.
I'll,
Thanks,
I'll have
everyone.
to I'll have to leave at 20 to 4.
Oh, that's, I think we'll be done by then.
I have a couple things that I have to go do, so I'm gonna go do them.
Okay, Jean,
Yeah.
thanks for being here.
Oh yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Tress. You're wonderful.
Feel free, we can always do it. We can continue in the garden sometime and just continue the chat.
Sounds great.
Now that I've gotten you started.
All right,
Okay,
guys.
everyone.
Thank you.
So see you at 2:53. I think everyone's in West Coast time. Yeah. So see
Thank you.
2:53.